Well, hello and welcome again. Tonight we're going to listen to the voice of Dublin. In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone, as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. Now she was a fishmonger, and sure 'twas no wonder, for her father and mother were fishmongers too, and each wheeled their wheelbarrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. Now she died of the fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of sweet Molly Malone. But her ghost wheels her barrow through the streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Alive, alive, oh. Crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh, there are many ghosts walking around the streets of Dublin. Viking ghosts, Norman ghosts, the ghosts of Lord Edward and Wolfe Tone, of Black Jack Fitzgibbon, and Lord Norbury, the hanging judge, and the bold Robert Emmet, the darling of Erin, who was hanged, drawn and quartered outside Catherine's Church in Thomas Street, his epitaph still to be written. And Zosimus, the blind ballad singer from the Coombe, calling for the repeal of the vile Act of Union. Ah, ye men of sweet Liberty's Hall, and ye women all round the Coombe, and ye that your Zosimus call to sustain every shuttle and loom, bring your silks and your satins and tweeds, and your tabernets all in their prime. Oh, bring them forth perfect with speed, as ye did in your Parliament's time. Yes, Michael Moore, the blind Zosimus, was born in Faddle Alley off the Black Pits in 1794. He lost his sight when he was only 2 weeks old, but he made up for this loss of sight with a talent for composing ballads and a prodigious memory for words of songs or recitations. He was a rhymer in his own right, writing rhymes about the social and political events of the day, and neither was he slow to take a theme from wherever it suited him, the Bible being no exception, and simply to transpose it to the environs of Dublin. On Job's banks contagious to the Nile, the old Pharaoh's daughter, she went to bathe in style. She took her dip and she come unto the land, and to dry her royal pelt she ran along the strand. A ball rushed ripped her, whereupon she saw a smiling babby in a wad of straw. She took him up and says she in accents mild, "Teenagers girls now which he is owns the child." She took him up and she gave a little grin, for she and Moses were standing in their skin. "Bedad now," says she, "it was someone very rude, left the little babby by the river in his nude. She took him to her old lad sitting on the throne. Da, says she, will you give the boy a home? Bedad now, says he, sure I've often brought in worse. Go, me darling daughter, and get the child a nurse. And now Blackamoor woman among the crew cried out, "Your royal savage, what's that to do with you? Your royal ladies is too meek and mild to beget this honestly, this darling little child." Then says Pharaoh, "I'll search every nook, from the Phoenix Park down to Donnybrook, and when I catch hold of the bastard's father, I will kick him from the Nile down to the Dodder." Well, they sent the bellman to the market square to see if he could find a slavey there, but the only one now that they could find was the little young one that left the child behind. She came up to Pharaoh, a stranger Maria, never let none that she was the baby's ma. And so little Moses got his mammy back, shows that coincidence is a nut to crank. Well, the poet Yeats was not unaware of his predecessor, and in an article which he titled "The Last Gleeman," he wrote admiringly of Zosimus, and said how many of his cited contemporaries may well have wished that their quivers were as full as his, for free from the interruption of sight, his mind turned every movement of the day and every change of public passion into rhyme. I heard it said recently that Yeats really wanted to be remembered as a singer, and after all, he did say, "Let me accounted be true fellow of a company that sang to sweeten Ireland's wrong with ballad and story, ran and song." However, the liberties of Dublin never lacked for poets, patriots, singers or musicians. Swift was dean in St. Patrick's Cathedral. The poet James Clarence Mangan lived just around the corner in Bride Street. Industry flourished there also. This is recalled in the names of the various streets: Weaver Square and Tenter's Fields. And Brendan Brannock, the music collector, told me that his father was the last silk weaver to have worked in the Coombe, and that there was always music to be heard coming from the Potts' house. Listen to the late Tommy Potts, who lived in the Liberties, one of the great virtuoso fiddle players, playing in his own individual style and playing appropriately the Liffey Banks. But the Dubliner is very slow to take things seriously, or to assume that the moral ground belongs to him alone. I suppose, like many a politician, he has found the high moral ground can be a very lonely place. Instead, he tends to make little of his achievements and attack his enemies with that touch of sarcasm which can have the reverse effect of making his achievements sound all the greater and leaving the pomposity of his enemies a subject for laughter. I'll sing you a song of peace and love. Whack full the diddle all the dido day. To the land that reigns all lands above. Whack full the diddle all the dido day. May peace and plenty be her share, who kept our homes from want and care. God bless Mother England is our prayer. Whack full the diddle all the dido day. When we were savage, fierce and wild, whack full the diddle all the dido day. She came like a mother to her child, whack full the diddle all the dido day. She gently raised us from the slime, kept our hands from hellish crime, and sent us to heaven in our own good time, whack full the diddle all the dido day. Our fathers oft were very bad boys, whack full the diddle all the dido day. Guns and pikes are dangerous toys, whack full the diddle all the dido day. From Barnet Whale to Peter's Hill, she made poor England weep her fill. But old Britannia loves us still, whack full the diddle all the dido day. No Irishmen forget the past, whack full the diddle all the dido day, and think of the time that's coming fast, whack full the diddle all the dido day, when we shall all be civilized, neat and clean and well advised. Now won't Mother England be surprised, whack full the diddle all the dido day, whack full the diddle all the dido day, so we say hip hooray. Come and listen while we pray, whack full the diddle all the dido day. Well, even the rebellion of Easter week 1916, when a terrible beauty was born, and which set Ireland on the road to the freedom which we have today, is simply referred to in this bit of a Dublin song as a little row in the town. I'll sing you a song of a row in the town. When the green flag went up and the crown rag came down, 'twas the neatest and sweetest thing ever you saw, and they played the best game played in Erin go Bra. God rest gallant Pierce and his comrades who died, Tom Clark, MacDonough, MacDermott, MacBride, and here's to Jim Connolly, he gave one hurrah as he placed the machine guns for Erin go Bra. But even if he describes it as a little row in the town, the Dubliner, you could see, was very proud that it all began in O'Connell Street that Easter Monday morning.
City fair rode I. There are mad lines of marching men in squadrons passed me by. No fife did hum nor battle drum did sound its dread tattoo, but the Angelus bells o'er the Liffey swell rang out through the foggy dew. Right proudly high over Dublin town they hung out the flag of war. 'Twas better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Sulva or Sudalbar. And from the plains of Royal Meath strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's guns with their long-range guns sailed in through the foggy dew. 'Twas Britannia bade our wild geese go, that small nations might be free. But their lonely graves are by Sulva's waves, or the shore sea. Oh, had they died by Pierce's side, or fought with Halbrew, their names we would keep where the Fenians sleep, 'neath the shroud of the foggy dew. But the bravest fell, and the requiem bell rang mournfully and clear. For those who died that Easter tide, in the springing of the year, and the world it gave in deep amaze at those fearless men, but few to board a fight that freedom's light might shine through the foggy dew.
But when I was growing up in Chapelizod, many of the customers in my father's pub were old soldiers, mostly from the Dublin Fusiliers. They had stories to tell of their time in the fields of Flanders and in the trenches around Wipers. Mick McGrain, if you could believe him, would tell of how he killed a sniper as he emerged from the place where he'd been hiding, and as a result got a fortnight home and leave. Billy Flaherty could show you the picture of himself as a fine young man in uniform with some of his comrades, home for a while from the front. So many of the homes I was in at that time had a big brass artillery shell case, highly polished, sitting on the windowsill alongside the aspidestra. But there was a certain sadness about those soldiers. They never quite got the glory they felt they deserved for the service they gave in that so-called Great War. Their glory was overshadowed by the actions of the men who stayed at home and fought for the freedom of their own country. Or had they died by Pierce's side, or fought with brave Cathal Brew, their names we would keep where the Fenians sleep 'neath the shroud of the foggy dew. It was quite common then to see around the streets of Dublin men who had suffered badly in the trenches from the effects of mustard gas, or the condition referred to usually as shell shock. This song, written by Pete St. John, reflects a time in Dublin's history which hopefully will never come again. It takes away the supposed glory of war as it was often displayed in the movies or on the walls of the regimental headquarters. And instead, it tells of the effect it had in one small working-class home in Dublin.
My father said farewell, and the band played tunes of glory. A giant man with ribbons and bedeviled dignity, a regimental sergeant, the backbone of the empire, for God and righteous glory bound for high Germany. Sweet Lord, I was just 7 when Margaret was 11. They served us war for breakfast and soldiers' songs for tea. Your father's gone campaigning was a way of not explaining that soldiers are the living proof of our inhumanity. My childhood passed away. It's the tales and lurid stories of manufactured glories and inhuman gallantry. I asked when is war over, but no one deemed to answer me. And Margaret played that dreaded tune called High Germany. Sweet Lord, I was just 7 when Margaret was 11. They served us war for breakfast and soldiers' songs for tea. Your father's gone campaigning was a way of not explaining that soldiers are the living proof of our inhumanity. My father made it home, but he came without his reason. Two eyes of molten madness, a senseless fool of war. He's just a child, my mother cried, to be dressed in full regalia and paraded as a hero home from high Germany. Sweet Lord, I was just 7 when Margaret was 11. They served us war for breakfast and soldiers' songs for tea. Your father's gone campaigning was a way of not explaining that soldiers are the living proof of our inhumanity. There'll be no tunes of glory for Margaret and me.
And certainly the Dubliner was not to be taken in by the tunes of glory, or the grand call to arms from the recruiting sergeant, or the poster of Kitchener as he pointed at you saying, "Your country needs you." One of the finest satirical songs I know was written by Paddock Carney about the recruiting sergeant who stood outside Dunphy's Corner, now Doyle's Corner at Phibsborough. You can almost see the proud Sergeant William Bailey with his ribbons and 40 medals, standing outside the pub, hoping to slip the king's shilling into the hand of some unwary young man. And before he knew where he'd be wading through the mud in the fields of Flanders.
Sergeant William Bailey was a man of great renown. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. In search of gallant young recruits, he used to scour the town. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. His face was full and swarty, of medals he had 40, and ribbons in his hat, red, white and blue. It was he who looked the hero and made the people stare as he stood at Dunphy's Corner, toodaloo. Yet, alas for human greatness, every doggy has his day. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. And Sergeant William Bailey is getting old and grey. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. No longer youths are willing to take his dirty shilling, and things for him are looking very blue. In spite of fife and drumming, no more recruits are coming for Sergeant William Bailey, toodaloo. Sergeant William Bailey, what a wretched sight is he. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. His back that once was stiff and straight, sure it's almost bent in three. Toodaloo-daloo-daloo-daloo. Some rebel youths with placards have called his army blackguards and told the Irish boyhood what to do. He has lost his occupation, let's sing in jubilation for Sergeant William Bailey to
Today I think that most people who are interested in traditional singing are well aware that within the thousands of songs that constitute Irish traditional songs, there is a small section that can be classed specifically as Dublin songs. This wasn't always the case, and for many people their first awakening to the fact that there was such a thing as unaccompanied Dublin ballad singing came when Brendan Behan wrote his play The Queerfella. It was a play against the barbarous custom of hanging people until they were dead. The song being sung by a prisoner in Mountjoy jail, which of course is situated along the banks of the Royal Canal. The song made a huge impact on the audience and since that time has remained a firm favourite with singers, not only in Ireland, but all over the world.
A hungry feeling came on me stealing, and the mice they were squealing in my prison cell. And that old triangle is went jingle jangle along the banks of the Royal Canal. To begin the morning, the screw is a water, isn't it? To begin the morning, the screw was bawling. Get out of bed and clean up your cell. And that old triangle, it went jingle jangle along the banks of the Royal Canal. Oh, the screw was peeping, and Humpy Gussie lay sleeping, as he lay there weeping for his girl Sal. And that old triangle, it went jingle jangle along the banks of the Royal Canal. But in the female prison, there are 70 women, and I wish there was with them that I did well. Then that old triangle could go jingle jangle along the banks of the Royal Canal. Well, I think that was done fairly well considered.
Well, Dublin means different things to different people. My father came up here from a hungry farm in Sligo at the age of 14 to make a living for himself. And although he spent the remaining 70 years of his life here, he was never considered a Dubliner, nor did he consider himself one. He constantly referred with pride to his country origins in Sligo, and in a Sligo accent that he never lost. Louis MacNeice, the poet from the north, said of Dublin, "This was never my town. I was not born or bred nor schooled here, and she will not have me alive or dead. But yet she holds my mind with her seedy elegance and her gentle veils of rain, and all her ghosts that walk and all that hide behind her Georgian facades, the catcalls and the pain, and Porter running from taps with a head of yellow cream, and Nelson on his pillar watching his world collapse." But Nelson is long gone, and Dublin is no longer collapsing, but is rising phoenix-like from the ashes that Louis MacNeice saw surrounding him. Dublin is a proud city and is acquiring a new dress. Donagh MacDonagh, the poet, sought to express the pride he took in his native city in his poem Dublin Made Me. He saw Dublin as an integral part of the Irish expression, but different. Different from the small towns with their self-important solicitors and bank clerks. And in his poem he tries to tell what Dublin is not and just how it differs from rural Ireland. Dublin made me, and no little town with the country closing in on its streets, the cattle walking proudly on its pavements, the jobbers, the gombian men and the cheats devouring the fair day between them, a public house to 100 men, and the teacher, the solicitor and the bank clerk in the hotel bar drinking for 10. Dublin made me, not the secret putching still in the raw and hungry hills of the west, The lean road flung over profitless bog where only a snipe could nest, where the sea takes its tide of every boat. Bonin and Curragh have no allegiance of mine, nor the cute, self-deceiving talkers of the south who look to the east for a sign. The soft and dreary Midlands with their tame canals wallow between sea and sea, remote from adventure. And northward, a far and fortified province crouches under the lash of arid censure. I disclaim all fertile meadows, all tilled land, the evil that grows from it and the good. But the Dublin of old statutes, this arrogant city, stirs proudly and secretly in my blood.
I'm Daffodil Mulligan, Biddy's young girl, and the fellas all say I'm a peach and a pearl. I was born in the daffodil time of the year, so they just call me Daffy, now maybe that's queer. But I'm sweet Daffodil Mulligan, I am, though me ancestors come from the queue. And I'm just such another, the spit to me mother, the lady that lives in one room down in Francis Street. Sweet Daffodil Mulligan, fresh fish, like the sweet Blarney roses that bloom. I am bright, hale and hearty, the life of the party. I'm Daffy, the belle of the queue, fresh fish. 'Twas out in the pine forest, shady and dim, that I first met me Jemmy, so tall and so slim. It was at an excursion, the girls were all swell, but I took the biscuits and Jem tart as well. For I'm sweet Daffodil Mulligan, I am, though me ancestors come from the queue. And I'm just such another, the spit to me mother, the lady that lives in one room down in Francis Street. Sweet Daffodil Mulligan, fresh fish, like the sweet Blarney roses that bloom. I am bright, hale and hearty, the life of the party. I'm Daffy, the belle of the queue, fresh fish. We were married in August when he was on strike, so he took me to Bray on the back of his bike. Now the strike is all over and Jem, bless his soul, has settled down steadily drawing the dole. Still I'm sweet Daffodil Mulligan, I am, though me ancestors come from the queue. I am just such another, the spit of me mother, the lady that lives in one room down in Francis Street. Sweet Daffodil Mulligan, fresh fish, like the sweet Blarney roses that bloom. I am bright, hale and hearty, the life of the party. I'm Daffy, the belle of the queue, fresh fish. Down in Francis Street, sweet Daffodil Mulligan, fresh fish, like the sweet Blarney roses that bloom. I am bright, hale and hearty, the life of the party. I'm Daffy, the belle of the queue, fresh fish.
Jimmy O'Dea, for a long number of years, was the humorous voice of Dublin. He sang, he was in pantomime, he made records, recorded humorous sketches, he acted in films, and eventually even succeeded in television. His songs and humour were as uncomplicated and simple as the rhymes the children were singing on the streets. Open the door and let me in, sir, I am soaking to the skin, sir. Open the door and let me in, sir, just to post me letter. 1, 2, 3, O'Leary, 4, 5, 6, O'Leary, 7, 8, 9, O'Leary, 10, O'Leary, postman. There were 3 Jews came in from Spain for to call upon me sister Jane. Me sister Jane, she is too young, I cannot bear her rattling tongue. So while away, 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 but I'll come back some other day. Come back, your coach is free, and who's the fairest one you see? The fairest one that I can see is Bonnie Mary, will you come with me? The dirty old thing, she wouldn't come, she wouldn't come, she wouldn't come. The dirty old thing, she wouldn't come to help me with me washing. So I'll get the Prince of Wales, the Prince of Wales, the Prince of Wales. So I'll get the Prince of Wales for to help me with me washing. How would you like to be me, up in an apple tree, A lump of jelly stuck in me belly, how would you like to be me? Even the Dublin love songs, if one could call them that, were sung with the same enthusiasm as the children sung their skipping songs. And as the new housing schemes were being built up on the outskirts of the city at that time, each in turn became the butt of the comedian's humour, and parodies were written about them. Delia Murphy's great song of the three lovely lassies from Banyan was soon separated from its rural origins and ended up, of all places, in Kimmage.
There were three lovely lassies from Kimmage, from Kimmage, from Kimmage. And whenever there was a bit of a scrimmage, sure I was the toughest of all. Ah, sure I was the toughest of all. The cause of the row is Joe Cashin, Joe Cashin, Joe Cashin. For he told me he thought I looked smashing at a dance in the Adelaide Hall, at a dance in the Adelaide Hall. Now the other two young ones were flippin', they were flippin', they were flippin', when they saw me and Joe and we trippin' to the strains of the Tennessee waltz, to the strains of the Tennessee waltz. Now he told me he thought we should marry, get married. He said it was foolish to tarry, so I lent him the price of the ring. Oh, I lent him the price of the ring. Me dad says he'll give us a present, a present, a present, an old stool and a lovely stuffed pheasant, and a picture to hang on the wall, and a picture to hang on the wall. I went down to the 10-in C-section, the section, the section, the TD just before the election. He promised me a house near me ma, yes, he promised me a house near me ma. Well, we're getting a house, the man said it. Now he said it, he said it, when I've 5 or 6 kids to me credit. In the meantime we live with me ma, in the meantime we live with me ma.
But it wasn't only in Kimmage West that the fair maids were living. There was at least one fair maid living in Cabra West, but as it turned out, she wasn't quite as faithful as the other one on the south side. Now, you've only heard a few of the voices of Dublin. The people are still singing and the songs are still being written. And if you keep your ears open, you will hear the voice of Dublin echoing all around you. Good night. It's all for the love of the fair young maid that in Cabra West End reside. If I lived up in Donnybrook, it is a 1 and a 2 ride. But there was a fly in the ointment now that you very seldom see. For although I loved her terrible well, she was in love with a Portuguese. Now he was a nasty piece of cutthroat, Alice was his name, and he couldn't wait for to get his hands on Concepta, who was me dame. So I made a vow by the Grand Canal that I would do him in, for I did not like them Portuguese, and in particular I didn't like him. So I followed them up to Grafton Street one evening just for fun. Around by the Mercer's Hospital, it's next door to the Bartley Duns. I spied them sitting in a corner seat, they were kissing and holding hands. And there he was seducing her with pints of baby shams. So I followed him up to his lodgings in Rathgar thereabouts. And as he walked up the alleyway, sure I battered him inside out. Well, he gave out many's an oath and swear till he was dead, I'm sure. Then I lifted off the manhole lid and I dropped him down the sewer. Now when the much she heard of this, she made me life a hell. And all for the sake of peace and quiet, sure I did her in as well. And it's now I'm up before the judge to answer for me crime. He says I didn't mind the first one, son, but not the second time. Now it's all for the love of that fair young maid and her Portuguese sailor boy. For the passionate love of that fair young maid, I've landed in Mountjoy. And if ever I get out again, my life I'll change and sing. And I'll marry with a mutt from Walkinstown. They wouldn't look at a Portuguese.
In Sounds Traditional tonight, we heard the singing of Luke Kelly, Ronnie Drew, Dominic Behan, Brendan Behan and Frank Harte, who presented the programme. Tommy Potts played the Liffey Banks on the fiddle, and the programme was produced by Peter Brown. Next week, Frank Harte will tell us about the singing voice of Irish America. That's next Thursday at 7:17.